Hello everyone, we're going to talk about making an analogous color scheme. So we're going to talk about colors and mixing colors and how to start. So when we do our analogous color scheme, we are going to start with one of your patterns. You're going to write the definition. Analogous is 3 colors adjacent to each other on the color wheel. I'm using blue, green, blue, and blue, violet. So when you choose your colors from the color wheel, you're going to kind of start getting that overlap of colors that we already used. On mine, I used red orange, I used yellow green, and I used red violet so far. So I'm going over to this side of the world for my analogous. I'm going to do blue green, blue to blue violet. You could do green to blue. I feel like it's a little bit less noticeable of a transition. If you incorporate that other color into it, you kind of get a little bit more of a transition, makes it a little more interesting. So that's why I'm going to do blue green, blue to blue violet. So I'll mix all 3 of these colors. Well, blue comes from the bottle. I'll mix a blue green and I'll mix a blue violet, and then I'll mix them in their own cup. So I'm going to put these over in their own individual cup. That's the blue, this is the green, blue green, and this is the violet. Blue violet, I'm sorry. All 3 of them are actually very dark. So what I'm going to do is add a little bit of white into each one and stir it up, because I think the natural color shows up a little bit better. And when they're a little lighter too, the transition is more obvious and more visible. So that's my blue green. It looks very green, but compared to the natural green, it's definitely a whole different color. There's my blue green. So it's a little deceiving at first. You're kind of like, ooh, is that going to be a good color? Let me try that out on paper so you can see it. There's blue green. It's very green, but it is blue green. Because next to the natural green, here's the natural green. Natural green is very light. Okay, I'm going to clean this off. Alright, I'm going to add a little bit of white to my blue that I'm mixing, just to give it a little bit of a different tint. There we go. Lighter tint. It's nice. Probably put a little bit more in there. I know you're supposed to mix color into white, but we're doing it this way. Break the rules just a little bit. There we go. That's a nice lighter blue that I can use. That'll make my transition go a little smoother. Yeah, I like that a lot better. Okay, and then we have, this is my mixing brush. I always tell you I have 2 brushes, one for mixing, one for painting, because the mixing brush definitely gets dirty. If you don't have 2 brushes, don't worry about it. And so forth. So I'm going to scoop a little bit of white. It's okay, I have a little blue in that because this is a blue violet, not just violet. I'm going to mix that in, and that color should be a little bit more true. There we go. So it's just mixing a little white into each one makes the color a little bit easier to see as well. And there is my blue violet. Very nice. Boom. Those are my 3 colors. So what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to start with the blue green, and I'm going to slowly add blue into it so I get close to blue, and then I'm going to start adding blue violet. You don't have to go straight pure blue with that middle color. Let me set these aside. So again, set yourself up. You have your painting, your scrap paper, your palette, brushes, paints, water cup, paper towels, and you're set to go. So I'm going to put my blue green here. Okay. Never fill the well. Always like about half max. I don't even do half full. It's more like a quarter full. And then I'm going to put the blue in a separate well and never pour it directly into my other color. Alright, and then I'm not even going to put the blue violet in yet because I'll probably stop and then continue another day. All right, so my first color, I'm actually gonna add a little bit of the blue into my blue-green for my first color. There we go. Just because I could use a little more blue, I probably. All right, using my clean brush. And I'm gonna paint the first box. Now, we've talked about making sure that you do a good amount of coats so that it's not streaky. Make sure you get rid of the white dots around the edge, so nice smooth stroke. It's usually a good rule of thumb to almost outline your shape first and then fill it in. I think that works really well for a lot of people. Just go around and outline your shape. You know, you can turn your paper, it's not stuck to the ground. Take your time, long, smooth strokes. You know, I showed that to you once before. Take your time with that. There we go. And then if you do that, sometimes it's easier to fill it in, and that way you're getting nice clean edges too when you go to paint, and so you're not getting those white fuzzy spots around your shapes. So if you're getting white fuzzy spots, definitely maybe outline your shape with paint first on the inside and then go around and fill it in. So this is my first blue-green color. First box. I'm gonna definitely need a second coat of this. So you can take a hairdryer to it. Mine's drying actually really quick. So if I just give it a minute, it will dry up real nice. And then I can just add my second coat on. You know, for the sake of the video, I might rush it a little bit and put it on a little early, but if you don't let it dry, what happens is you wind up pulling the color back up and you end up with like a streaky spot. You can also kind of spread the paint out a little bit more if it's too clumpy in one area, like this little clumpy here, this little clumpy over here. And then it definitely dries quick. Okay? But you can actually see the paint dry. You can actually watch it. Second coat dries a lot slower than the first coat. And that's kind of a rule of thumb with any kind of paint or glaze or material that you use. Okay, here we go. Going back for my second coat. Careful with my edges. You can outline it again if you'd like, or if you feel comfortable and just kind of going through and getting the color in, go for it. There we go. It's a really nice color. All right, so I'm going to keep painting this one, and then when I get to my next color, hang on. So this is number one. I'll make a little swatch here. And I'm going to add blue for the second one. So add a chunk of blue. We lightened it so that we could see the colors a little bit easier and the transition easier. So you can see it definitely is a bit of a different color just from the swatch and the sample. I could have probably even gone a little lighter with this blue-green now that I'm kind of thinking back. So what I could do is remix a little more white into it and go over it again, just so you can see the color transition. But I think I'll be okay with this one. But the white definitely helps. You actually see the colors that you're painting. I think I'm good. I think it is a different color green. Yeah, when I put it next to it, it looks different. I always do that too. When I go to paint onto the actual motif, I start where the other one ended, just to see if the colors look different. It definitely looks more blue. I can see it now as I'm painting it. All right, so I'm okay. I'm in the clear. I didn't do? I didn't use my mixing brush. That's why I have too much paint on my brush. Because I used the brush I mixed with to paint the shape. Which is fine, you can do that. I always like to clean the brush off though. So I'm not putting too much paint on my brush. And also you get that leftover of the previous color still stuck in your brush. So it's always good to clean your brush off between motif shapes and color transitions. There we go. So it's definitely much bluer than the previous one. And you could always, if I didn't like that color, I could have mixed some more white into it, and then I could have gone over and redid this whole first box. You can go over the colors, they should be opaque with another color, but I would only do it once. So if I were to mess up again, I think I would have used another pattern that I have. And I'm rushing this a little bit just for the sake of the project and the video, but I would have let that dry a little bit more before I do my second coat. And then I'm gonna add more blue. So I'm just adding that blue into each of these colors, into each of the, each pattern, to get it more blue. Now somewhere along this line, I'm gonna kind of hit more of a blue tone. You don't have to go pure blue. It shouldn't be exactly this color. It could be really close. And if it's around this third row, even towards the end of the third row, that's fine. And then you start adding that blue violet into it. Okay, so you do want to see 3 colors change. So if you feel like you're not getting much of a transition, add more. Add more of that color to it. There we go. That's looking definitely a lot more blue compared to the last one. You can see the blue, like especially if I streak it. Like this one was a lot more green than this one. That's another way to kind of see it, is if we streak it with your hand. But you just get your hands dirty, so I don't know how you're feeling about that. Depends on you. But I've done that before in the past too. And then I go over. And look, I didn't clean my brush off again. Because I'm trying to rush this a little bit so the video is not too long. Okay, so somewhere in this middle area I should get to a good blue color. There's no definite one, but it's usually what I think next. So I'm going to keep painting. I'm going to make a time lapse so you can see what I'm doing. And I will point out when I have the transition color in the time lapse so you can see how I do that as well. All right, we're gonna do that. And in the background again is just gonna be some form of these colors with a gray mixed in and a transition. Okay, make sure it contrasts. So I might go really light gray through a lot of this with these colors, because that way it'll pop, it'll show different because my colors are so dark. All right, if you have questions, let me know, and I'll be glad to answer anything you have, any questions. So this is your analogous color scheme. You're doing a transition between 3 colors, and the background is with gray.